Hello and welcome to the Venue Success Podcast. I'm your host, Tirzah Caffee, and our theme in season 2 has been Tools of the Trade, the pros behind the process. And today I am joined by a couple of pros, Whitney and Daniela. They're co-founders of Wedding Industry Ads. I'm so excited to have you on the show today, ladies.
Thank you so much for having us. We're stoked to be here.
Oh my gosh. Okay, well, we've got some fun stuff to talk about, but before we do, it is time for Crazy Stories with Tirzah, because people have lost their minds. So, at this point, doing 2 seasons, the second season of the podcast has been much longer than I planned, and I keep having people like you two beautiful ladies reaching out, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't say no. We just keep building on and on and on to this season. Anyway, all of that to say, I've been running a little dry on stories, and I'm like, how am I running dry on stories, Tirzah? You've got 32 years of stories, but I should have written them in a little book.
Mm-hmm.
But before we got on today, I was like, okay, think about it, Tirzah, think about it. And this story popped into my brain, and I cannot believe that I haven't talked about this before because it's so ridiculously dumb. So basically, and this didn't happen too long ago. It was just a couple years ago. And we had a kind of a smaller size wedding happening at the venue. There's probably only 30 guests or something. And so it was very casual, but we were getting ready to start the wedding. And no one can find, and I was coordinating this event. And it was the thing that is always your worst case scenario as a wedding planner. I lost the groom. I'm like, I cannot find him anywhere. I do not know where this man is. And I've got all of my staff going all around the venue trying to find him. So I start walking up and down the parking lot, and I'm like, did we have a runaway groom situation here? What is happening? I find the man in his car with his eyes closed. It's go time, right? The wedding was supposed to start right at this moment. And he's just sitting in his car with his eyes closed. And I knock on the window. I'm like, hey, buddy, do you want to get married? And he's like, I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready yet. I need some more time. And I was like, what's going on? And he's like, well, I haven't written my vows yet. And I'm just sitting here trying to think about what to say. And I was like, exactly, Daniela. My jaw hit the ground. I was like, are you freaking kidding me right now? You haven't written your vows. And he's like, I need some time. So I'm like, you have 5 minutes. You have 5 minutes. Anyway, so I go back 5 minutes later. I'm like, hey, buddy, it's time to get married. And he's like, no, I'm not ready. Anyway, this goes on for 20 minutes. And finally, I'm like, listen, no matter what you have, just speak from your heart, okay? If you don't have something, just speak from your heart. It's going to be okay. And he's like, are you sure? You're sure? I'm like, yes, just speak from your heart. It'll be fine. So we get everyone down the aisle. It gets to the point where they're saying their vows. And he says, this is all he could come up with. I love you, babe. I'm happy we're getting married today. That is literally all he said. And I looked at my husband who was running the sound, and I was like, this marriage isn't gonna make it. This is not okay. And then to make it so much worse, if it could get worse, his beautiful bride had the most articulate, beautiful, of course, right, thought out vows. And then she does his, and then he was like, yeah, what you said. And I was like, oh my goodness, red flag. Anyway, so that's the story that popped into my head today. It's amazing to me. Well, I could also tell you one little interesting fact. They did divorce, I think, after 2 years. Yeah. I mean, we're not surprised, right? Obviously he was not into the whole thing. We were very sad to hear about it, but it's you see these things, these red flags. I know, Whitney, you've worked in weddings and stuff for a long time too. And it's you see these red flags with guys. I'm like, I really actually wanted to go to the bride. It wouldn't have been cool, but to be like, hey, if you want to have dinner and just skip the wedding part, you don't have to do this. Anyway, so that's my crazy story. People truly have lost their minds. Why go through all this effort of planning a wedding if you're not into it? I just don't get it.
That is a crazy story. That's a crazy story.
It is crazy. Yes. Okay. Anyway, there we go. Let's transition. Okay. So we have Daniela Whitney here. We met a couple years ago at a conference we were both speaking at with Brandy Gar. I think it was that one.
Yeah.
Was it Wedding Pro CEO?
It was.
We were in Texas somewhere. I don't even remember. It was such a haze in my mind, but we met there, and I really enjoyed getting to know you two, and yeah, hearing about what you're doing. So Danielle and Whitney, like I said, they are the co-founders of Wedding Industry Ads. It's a boutique digital advertising agency that serves venues and wedding pros. And they specialize in the things that we all need help with, which is Google Ads, Meta Ads. And then they do those fully built sales funnels through their lead management platform that they have called LeadLock. So their mission is to make digital advertising accessible and profitable for the wedding industry. And I've heard many great things about you. So for those of you that have been catching this whole season, you know that I bring people on this show that I've had personal experience with. And I haven't personally worked with Daniela and Whitney, but I personally know them. So I can vouch for them. And I know of people that use them and have had a great experience. So while I can't give a full personal testimony, I do stand behind what it is that they're doing. And I know the platform that they use, and it is a great platform. So we're going to jump right in today. And I haven't done a podcast with two separate guests on like this before, so we'll see how it goes. If you're listening or watching, give us some grace today. I'm sure it'll be fine. But just jump in, whoever wants to answer some of these questions. But the first one I had for you are, what are some of the biggest mistakes that you see venue owners specifically making with their paid ads, even if they've been running them for a while? I would love your feedback about that.
I would love to jump in on this one. So
okay, go for it.
One of the first mistakes that we see is that they are running ads, but without a true funnel, right? So, maybe they're running Google ads or Meta ads and just sending that traffic to the homepage of their website, or maybe even just to a simple contact form, the contact page of their website. But what we see that is such a difference maker is running ads to a landing page specifically dedicated for ads traffic, right? And so the definition of a funnel really is that you're putting people through, you've got a big pool of people, right? And you're funneling them through. And so each stage of that funnel, you do want to make it easy for them. You want to give them just one clear next step. So when we send this ads traffic to a dedicated landing page, there's only one choice, only one next step for them really to be able to take, right? Which is inquiring with you, submitting their information to you, versus a website where they can really kind of explore around and go to different pages of the website, maybe go over to your social media, check out your gallery, so many different things and so many different distractions. And that's not to say that your website's not a valuable marketing tool in your business. It is. But when you are paying for this ads traffic and you want them to convert into that next step, having a true landing page really is a game changer, right? And then the funnel steps beyond that landing page. Is it easy for them to then be able to access your calendar and book a tour? Are there nurture emails that they are going to be getting after they inquire with you, after they book their tour, leading up to the tour? Do you have a process in place when these leads come in to not only be automatically following up with them, text and via email, but personally reaching out as well, right? To make those personal touch points and continue them along the sales process. So that, I would say, number one is the biggest thing. And then secondly, I would say running ads, but not really focusing on the right campaign objectives. And sometimes we'll see this actually even, with other agencies who are running ads on behalf of venues. They're really focused on getting more traffic, getting more clicks, getting more visibility on Meta, on Facebook and Instagram, but not necessarily on getting the conversions, right? We don't just want to get eyes on your venue. We want to be able to capture those email addresses, that contact information, so that you can really be able to start the sales process with them. And then thirdly, I would say, and this one I feel like is probably what's overlooked the most in marketing strategies for venues, is not utilizing email marketing. So not
Mhm.
only having an email nurture sequence after these leads come in, but what happens after that initial email nurture sequence? Because oftentimes it's maybe 7 days, 10 days. Some of the really, venues who are set up really well, maybe you're following up for 2 weeks pretty consistently. But we know that buyer behavior these days is changing. Some people are researching much sooner, but are taking much longer to make decisions. We were hearing from some of our venues that brides and grooms are coming in the door and letting them know that they're touring 10 to 15 other places. So it's a much longer, more kind of drawn out sales process. And these couples really want to make thoughtful, intentional decisions, which can mean they might inquire with a venue, but may not make a decision for months down the road. So if you have an email marketing system in place to be doing some sort of email blasts, like once a month to your full list of these people that these leads you've been paying for, right, through your marketing and your advertising, that really is going to give you a leg up. And you'd be surprised how many people that you kind of thought were stale leads that really will resurface when they're ready.
So let me just clarifying question for some people. When people are running ads now, to also clarify, we're not talking about boosting ads, right? We're talking about like, I sat in your seminar before, like don't hit boost.
No.
I think that was you guys that said
Yeah.
that.
Yep.
So we're talking about strategic ads here. And so, a lot of people are running these ads, but without a clear objective to actually be able to get contact information to follow up with them. To me, that is like the highlight of everything that you were just talking about. Is like, why spend all of this money, right? Like capturing it's not cheap, honestly. I mean, to run a really effective ad campaign, and especially if you're in a super competitive market, right? So it's like these people may be spending $800,000 a month on ads, right? And then they're not capturing emails. And it's like, how do you truly market well to these people without their email address? I think that is a really big thing. But how, with this landing page, what do you have on that landing page? I'm just curious about that. If it's not on their website, what does kind of
Mhm.
like that look like? Because you said like there's one objective. Is it just truly to get their name, phone number, email?
So I would say the strategy varies depending on your sales process, right? A little
Mm-hmm.
bit. But ultimately, it's the same content that you might have on your website. It's just structured a little bit differently. So your website might have a homepage and then a different page where you learn about. Maybe there's a gallery. There's a area that talks about the services that you have to offer. But it's navigable in a way that
Mm-hmm.
we kind of don't want when you're running ads and sending ads traffic. We want it to be very clear, and we want all of the messaging throughout this long format page to reinforce the same action, the exact same next step. We don't want to say, go check out our Instagram, because then they'll click away and then they won't know how
Mm-hmm.
they got there. And next thing you know, they're scrolling on Explore and you've lost them. So
Yep.
it's really about streamlining, capitalizing on that, shortened attention span, and making sure that the information that's on the landing page itself is comprehensive enough to sort of answer some of those surface questions that somebody might have before they then submit a formal inquiry. So including lots of reviews, lots of sort of context around, really with a lot of clarity, what it is that you do, who you are, what sets you apart, why they should pick you over somebody else, really what makes you different, and why you care differently. I think having that way of articulating a personal connection is really a great place to start, leading with your values. And then, based on whatever your inquiry process or sales process looks like, then there are ways where you can then filter in the supporting information that gets a little bit more granular, that kind of has more of those deeper details about your venue
Mm-hmm.
specifically, or the things that they would then opt in for, that additional information.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's awesome. That's awesome. Thank you for clarifying that. So, kind of pigtailing off of that, should venues focus more on Google ads, Meta ads, both? Like, I feel like that's pretty overwhelming for people, when they're like, oh man, do I focus more on social media? Is that where everybody really is? Do I need to do both? Because when you add them up together, yes, it could be. It could be a little expensive. I mean, to me, I'm like, well, expensive is relative, right? Like, it's kind of, to me, it's like sometimes the cost of doing business, right? Like, these are kind of essential things. What are your thoughts about Google Ads and Meta? Do you see venues being most effective when they have both?
We really do. So, the ideal scenario would be that you were advertising on Google and simultaneously advertising on Meta. Really, the reason being is that they're two very different platforms, right? Google is a
Mhm.
search engine, it's where people are going searching with high intent, specifically looking for a venue like yours
Mhm.
in your area. But we know, especially in kind of initial research phases, people will hit your website or they'll hit your landing page and they may not be ready to inquire yet. They may not be a conversion yet. Um, and that's where the power of meta retargeting really can kind of come into play, right? Because now we have this pixel data. We know that they are interested, that they've hit your website before. So we can make sure that your ads on Facebook and Instagram are reaching these people. Of course, we
Mm.
can also make sure on Facebook and Instagram that ads are reaching, completely cold audiences there that haven't heard of you as well. But we do find that it's really powerful when the two are run in tandem, and it almost really kind of has a compounding effect on the
Mhm.
the results. Um,
Mhm.
we do work with some clients where they're just running Meta ads or some that are just running Google ads, and depending upon your budget and what you're looking for and what your objectives are, that it's totally fine. That's fair, right? But I would say, if you have $1,000 a month to spend on your advertising, in all likelihood, you are going to see better results splitting that 50-50 on Meta and Google versus just putting $1,000 in on one platform or the other.
You answered exactly what I was gonna ask, like,
Yay.
because sometimes, and I think $1,000 to me is kind of like anything less than that, I'm like, I don't know. So if someone really only had, say, $500 a month and you had to steer them in one direction or the other, do you think that it is kind of more market specific depending on how you would drive them? That's always been kind of my mindset, like, tell me your thoughts about that.
I would say it's both market specific and then also the individual business owner specific. If this business owner is somebody who loves creating content and they have a really good organic presence, there's probably a lot that they could do with taking some
Mm.
of that content, putting budget behind it, and pouring into Meta as their main advertising platform if they had a limited
Mhm.
budget to work with. On the other
Mhm.
hand, if they are really not consistent organically on social media, but they have a beautiful website that is set up for conversions, then they could probably gain a little bit more traction from
Mhm.
putting all of their budget towards Google ads where they're going to get that high intent search traffic.
Mhm.
Just knowing that they're not going to have the same sort of follow up. I think really to tie together how these two platforms complement each other so well, it's helpful to understand that full picture, the full customer journey, start to finish, cold, lukewarm, warm, hot. Like we go through these phases and there are different campaign objectives, different platforms, different layers that support the different steps in that funnel overall. So you want to make sure that ultimately you have all of your bases covered so that you're helping people work with you for their full process, like start to finish. Um, and if you're only able to amplify one of those layers with paid media, then maybe there's more that you do manually on the other end, right? So
Mhm.
if you're putting all of your advertising dollars into really top of funnel promotional activities, then you might do a little bit more follow up manually just to make sure that you're making
Mhm.
the most of those connections that you're making or the traffic that you're seeing from that.
No, I love that. This is totally off topic, kind of, but let me ask you this
Sure.
question. So I know SEO is a really big part of the marketing scene. How do you guys kind of work specifically in your business with people that are maybe doing that for a venue? Is that something that you guys provide? I was thinking that you guys don't do SEO, but tell me more about that.
No, you're right. So we don't do SEO. So we really are strictly focused on the paid side of things. So Google
Mhm.
ads are kind of like the paid complement to
Mhm.
SEO, right? with your SEO efforts, you are working to make sure that you're showing up at the top of the search results organically versus with paid Google search campaigns. We're putting together, the targeted keywords and audiences to have you show up really as a sponsored search result for users who are searching with high intent. And so for wedding venues who do have a good grasp on both, it really is kind of a double whammy. It's double visibility because if you're already ranking high organically and you're showing up in the paid search on that very first page of Google, somebody's going to be seeing your name twice already, right? And with Google ads, it is really nice that they are pay-per-click. Unless somebody is actually clicking on your ad, you're not getting charged ad spend for your Google ads. And so they may be seeing, your paid search results, your organic search results, you showing up, on the maps, your Google business profile. And the more that they're seeing you, the more likely that they are to click, but they're not even necessarily going to end up clicking on the ad. They could click on one of the organic results. Your ad has done its job, but done it in that situation for free, actually, because it's pay-per-click.
Yes. No, I love that. And if you really want to hit it just with everything you got, those are the three main areas, right? Like, it's really great to have someone, especially I feel like for some of us in super competitive markets, like having, there's a lot that you could do on your own with SEO. And Dr. Google is really helpful with that. But like, if you have I always had a strategic, specific person that did my SEO for me, but also worked in tandem with people like you to be able to kind of work cohesively as a team to really put your venue in the best light, So I think that's kind of what I was getting at is like, I know that you guys would work really, it's such a collaborative effort too, right? So what do you feel like is the most important metric venue owners should be tracking to know if their ads are actually working? I feel like tracking to me is everything, like even with sales tracking and all that kind of tour and conversions and all this stuff. I feel like there's so many venue owners that get so stuck in the weeds that they're not tracking things. They don't even know where leads are coming from. So talk to me a little bit about that.
I love this question. Let's zoom out. Sales. That's the most important metric, right? When we're talking really with any client. Are you getting a return on your investment? Is this paying off for you? Is it turning into business clients? And then as you go sort of up the funnel, each of those conversion stages carries a little bit less weight in a way. So if you were to narrow in on your most important metric, it's the one that converts into a client. And 1% improvement there is going to have a huge impact on your funnel, more than 1% improvement on the cost per click on your ad, right? So we like to look at it as a whole and make sure that everything is really pointing and driving that ultimate conversion. But we do want to make sure that we're measuring everything so that we can pay attention to what are those little dials that we can be turning to just improve the overall funnel as a whole. I would say for somebody who is getting started, it's really similar to tracking leads going through a sales process. You just want to identify what's every single step in this process. First, they click the link on the ad, then they, scroll down the page to the inquiry form, they fill it out, they submit it, they open the emails, they book a call, like really look at every single step from start to finish and know that really once the bottom steps are reliable, then it makes sense to like expand what's happening with the top steps. But you can get all of the traffic, like your top steps can be converting really well, but if they're not actually turning into booked calls, booked tours, booked clients, then there's a deeper issue foundationally, and that's usually within that sales process that needs some attention.
No, that's really good. I actually was talking with, I was consulting with someone, it was last week, and they were telling me that they have close to 100 new leads a month, and they were only, I think, converting what was it? I think it was less than 5% of their leads coming in were actually converting into tours. And she originally was talking to me because I think she thought that she had a tour issue because I do a lot of
Uh-huh.
training on tours. And I was like, actually, like your close rate at 50% is really fantastic. I'm happy
Right.
with that. But if you have close to 100 leads coming in and you're having so few tours, something is broken in the system, right? And
That's that.
yes, exactly. And I'm like, dude, like if you could double your tours and still have the 50% conversion, that's a game changer, right? And so sometimes we focus on the wrong things when we don't know the data. A lot of people say to me, like, I just have a gut feeling about, all different types of things in their business. And I'm like, there's something to be said for a gut feeling. But I think when it comes to something like this, where you're spending hundreds, thousands of dollars, like you really need to be knowing like what's working and what is not working. Do you find that people that are running their own ads are actually even tracking? Like when you've come in to work with someone, how often do people actually have good data for you? I'm just curious. I
Great
feel like it's
question.
going to be pretty low.
Yeah. So there are a lot of people who have been like DIYing their ads, right? And then they kind of come to us because really and truly, they've just been running ads in the dark. They have been trying, and I love imperfect action, but they just don't know what they're doing and they don't have the guidance. So they don't even necessarily know what to be looking at. But what's great about it is that their ad accounts are tracking data, right? We can go in there and we know what to look at. And so at a more granular level, inside an ad account, we're going to be looking at link click-through rate. That's always going to be probably the most important thing that we would be looking at
Mm-hmm.
Google ads and Meta ads. Out of all the people that are seeing these ads, how many people are clicking on them? Like what percentage of people? That is going to tell us if the copy, if the creative of your ads are actually resonating. But then from there, then it's time to dig into um, your landing page or your website and how is that converting. And most people do not know that because it's going to require some manual calculations, right? To really look at the number of landing page visits you got from your ad campaigns versus the number of inquiries that you got and divide that out and to do the math there. So that's a really important one because if you don't have a page or a website that is converting well, you truly are just paying for all of that traffic, all of those eyes to see it, and nothing is happening from there. From an ad standpoint, the other thing that we're always going to be looking at is what is your cost per lead? How much does it actually cost you to capture this information? And oftentimes when people are not running their ads the right way, they're DIYing it, or maybe, worked with a freelancer or an agency who's more kind of focused on just like clicks or those sort of like vanity metrics. They're not truly running the conversion campaigns that are going to that are specifically for lead
Mm-hmm.
generation and are going to tell us how much each of these leads cost, right? So, I mean, when we get into people's ad accounts, we'll see the whole sort of gamut of things, but there's always like some data, right, for us to be able
Mm-hmm.
to dig into and to get into. But I think one of the things that really kind of sets us apart in our work with our clients is that we educate them on what they should be looking at. What do these numbers mean? How can we help you make those sort of data-driven decisions? And a lot of people who have come to us from previously running ads, whether it was through somebody else or themselves, are just kind of in the dark and are a little bit clueless. And they don't like that feeling. They want to know, is this working? Is it not working? If it's not working, what do I need to do to fix it?
Mm-hmm. And is that something that you provide for your clients? Do you provide some of that data for them to kind of like, how do you do that? Is that like a monthly, quarterly? Like, how do you give that data to them?
Great question. Yeah. So for our full service clients, we are giving them a detailed monthly report. And it's not just numbers for them to look at. We do a video walkthrough for them as well. So I think I was telling you earlier, Tirzah, before we even started recording, that we have Google experts on the team. We have Meta experts on the team. They're typically tag teaming on clients' accounts so that clients really kind of get the best of both worlds. So in their monthly report, they'll get a video walkthrough on the Google ad side of things, a video walkthrough on the Meta ad side of things, so they can really have a much deeper understanding of how things are working and how they are working together and the steps that we are taking to really kind of continuously improve things inside their accounts.
That's so important. I love that you do that. I know other people that do, maybe similar-ish things, but don't provide that. And to me, I feel like it's just everything to be able
Mhm.
to have that data. I mean, as business owners, we have to be educated on on these things, right? And especially when you're paying someone to do a service for you like this, it really kind of also affirms all of your efforts as well. And I think it's a very, very good thing that you guys do that. So high five.
Thank you.
All
Yeah,
right.
we agree. I mean, we think that, ultimately, especially if you're investing in ads, your goals are probably to grow your business, right? Or to create some stability with it. And with those things in mind, really you have to start looking at the data. You have to start looking at the numbers because they tell you what to do next. They tell you where to focus your efforts and really maximize that return on investment. And so if you're going to see success with ads, really there's no avoiding the
Mm-hmm.
numbers, but they're not helpful if you don't understand the story that they're telling. So that's why
Mm-hmm.
we really do care about providing that insight. And oftentimes our reports include suggestions, action items like test this different headline on your landing page or update this form or remove this one question because we think that might be a sticky point, or we're really able to
Mm-hmm.
dial in and give really specific feedback on what to do to help support what's happening with the ads outside of the marketing, because they work together. The ads don't just operate in isolation. They're
Mm-hmm.
really deeply integrated with all of the other aspects
Right.
of your marketing system.
Right. No, that's well said for sure. Walk us through the advertising strategy that you recommend for venues right now. What's actually working in today's market? So, one of the things as a venue coach that I deal with all of the time with people is that they have been doing the same thing forever and it used to work for them and it just isn't anymore and they don't know what to do. And so, right, like if you're not growing, you're dying. And so, you have to constantly, I believe, be a student of our industry, be a student of the just keeping your pulse on the market and being, even listening to podcasts like this is a really big, important part of it. And just understanding, I'm speaking at the Wedding MBA coming up soon, and I'm talking a lot about like the buying habits of Gen Z and like these are important things. And I love Gen Zers. I've got children that are Gen Zers, right? So like understanding this, and I think that's what's so special about you ladies is that you are constantly educating yourself so that you could sell so strategically. Anyway, let me just be quiet for a second. But I'm just so curious your strategy for venues right now, just with so many that are struggling.
Yeah.
Leads are
Yeah.
down. That's what everyone's saying. Leads are
Mhm.
down. Leads are down.
Mhm. I think Whitney's going to have an amazing response to this. I think my beginning context would be that just validating that, yeah, expectations are changing. The market has shifted. Buying habits are really different among Gen Z and millennials even
Mhm.
than they were, even 10 years ago, much less 20, and so for those who are established in the business and in the industry, it is important to stay adaptive. And
Mhm.
some of those things that, I think about automated responses, for example. This is like just one piece of the puzzle, a quick follow-up or a quick confirmation that goes out. Um, there's some resistance around that. It's the personalization, it's that personal touch that is what, builds that connection and turns into a client working relationship. And so it's not necessarily about replacing what you've always done. It's how can we almost bridge the gap and support and meet the expectation of this new force in of clients in the
Mhm.
industry without losing that personal connection. So it's a combination of
Mhm.
automations and personal outreach, right? And just being
Mhm.
able to be adaptive, I think, is really going to set you apart and keep you relevant in the market.
Mhm. Mhm.
The strategy is layered though, and there are lots of moving pieces in it. So I think that that's another part that maybe Whitney can speak to as well.
Definitely. Yeah. So it really is like a multi-pronged, layered approach. So I'll talk about the Google Ads side of it first. So what we'd like to focus on first is a Google search campaign. So really making sure that you are showing up in the search results of users searching with high intent, right? And so if you're just starting off with Google Ads, or if you haven't previously been tracking conversions but have been running Google Ads, the very first thing that we want to do is run a campaign that's optimized for clicks, yet that is tracking conversions. So, and by tracking conversions, I mean people who are inquiring. We're capturing their information. Then once we get to a point where those conversions are happening and Google has that data, then we shift the objective. The Google search campaign is now going to be optimized for conversions. We want Google to know, like, we want you to be showing these ads to the people who are likely to inquire, get us more leads like these. Then once we're able to get those campaigns to a stage where they are consistently bringing in, I would say, at least one conversion, at least one lead a day, that is when we can then tap into Google's really powerful Performance Max campaigns. And that should actually then from there really kind of skyrocket your results. That is actually a mistake that we often see with Google Ads is people trying Performance Max campaigns too soon before really kind of doing the legwork of getting these conversions. And then you just end up with like a ton of eyeballs in your business, but like low quality traffic or low quality leads or not necessarily anything running on the back end. So that's what we recommend for the Google strategy side of things. And that, is a process that can take anywhere, I would say, from like 4 to 6 months, usually, because it is all about kind of collecting that data and refining things. Now, on the meta ad side of things, we really like to create what we call a full funnel of ads. So ads that are meeting people at different stages of the customer journey. So client attraction ads that are set up to reach completely cold audiences, people who have never heard of you before. They haven't visited your website. They haven't seen you on Facebook or Instagram. And that is a really great, low cost, effective way to make sure that you are getting brand new eyes on the business every single day. Usually thousands of new eyes on the business, even with just like a couple of dollars a day in ad spend. Majority of the budget is going to be focused on conversion campaigns. So these lead generation campaigns, getting people to fill out your form, to opt in, to inquire with you. But then also bottom of funnel ads. So these nurture retargeting ads that are meant to solely be getting in front of the people who have heard of you before. They've seen other ads of yours, or they visited your website, or they have engaged with you on Facebook or Instagram before, right? So that from an ad strategy perspective, that's what we recommend on those two platforms. But a huge part of the strategy is not just what happens with the ads, but what happens on the back end. So I mentioned earlier the landing page. That's going to be a really crucial part of it. And not only the landing page, but after they fill out the form on your landing page, are they rerouted to a thank you page? Because on that page, that's where the tracking can really happen. That can tell Google and Meta, okay, this person is a lead. And then that information then flows back through into your ad accounts so that the ads really can optimize over time and Google and Meta can understand who are these users that are becoming leads. And so after they fill out the form, like what's going to happen from there, right? We recommend an automated email that goes out pretty much instantaneously because today's buyers, they need that sort of instant gratification. And no, it's not going to replace personal outreach. You do still need to personally reach out to your leads, but it should be a value-rich email that gives them something more of yours to consume immediately, right? And has a call to action of that next step of really getting on the calendar to book a tour. And so you need to make it easy for them to book a tour as well. Like it should be a link to a landing page that has your calendar of availability to where they can just themselves find a time that works for them and their fiance and get on your calendar, right? If people don't go ahead and take that next step sort of immediately, that's when an email nurture sequence is really going to come into play. That's happening over the course of a week or two that is continuing with that call to action of let's get you scheduled for a tour. Here's the link to be able to do that. along with that, some personal touch points should be layered in there, maybe reaching out to them to share what availability is like, seeing if they have questions. We do recommend an automated text that goes out a few minutes after that initial email, because we all know, people's inboxes are crazy right now too, or sometimes things unfortunately can end up in spam. So that text message is really meant to get right in front of them, to make them, go check their inbox to make sure that they have it, or it even could, include a link to your brochure right from within that text message, or maybe a question of, hey, are you ready to go ahead and schedule a tour with us? So that's what we recommend kind of on the text message side of things. And then for those people who are, getting on your calendar and scheduling a tour, well, what are you doing to warm them up before that tour? And I'm not just talking about like appointment reminders. What sort of information do you want them to have consumed prior to them walking in the door of your venue? And then from there, the tour process takes over from there, but that's really what we recommend as far as the lead gen strategy and what's working for the venues we work with.
It's so good. I had a venue owner that was doing kind of an automation through, like, they had their Calendly linked in with all their automations and stuff, and they had, I think there was, 10 reminders that were going out. Your appointment's coming, your
Mhm.
appointment's coming. And I was talking to them and they're like, a lot of people are canceling their tours. And I'm like, yeah, because you're just reminding them of the same thing. You're not actually nurturing the
Mhm.
relationship or giving anything to them. And so I would just say, listeners, if you are doing that because you don't want to have to drive all the way to your venue and you're annoyed, that you're just trying to over remind people, use that energy to really build relationship and pre-qualify people as well too. That way, if they are going to cancel, they're canceling for a good reason because you realize, oh, well, this venue doesn't have a service that I need, or maybe
Mhm.
it's too expensive for me, or X, Y, or Z. That what you're saying, Whitney, is so incredibly important, is that people want to feel also a connection with you. I do also want to reinforce what you said about automated emails that get sent when someone asks for something. People are okay with an automated message. There's a lot of people that are screaming very loudly about how this generation is looking for authenticity and they want personal connection. Yes, but they also want the information and they want it now. And they are
Mhm.
okay getting it like from an automated source to get what it is that they want. Now, the follow up and all that kind of stuff, could there be some personal touch in that? Absolutely. But I just wanted to affirm that to you. Like, some people may be like, oh, I don't want an automated email to go out. Yes, you do.
Mhm.
Also, isn't it really cool to be able to have your business work for you in the middle of the night when someone is a nurse and they're sitting there wanting to get information about your venue? Like, it's okay to let your business work for you and not be stuck at your computer copying pasting. There's still people that do
Mhm.
that.
I know.
No, but I really, really affirm everything that you're saying about that. It's so good. And we're not talking about this today, but it's like, you work so hard with your Meta and your Google ads and your SEO and all the stuff, and then you get them to the point where they're there at your venue. Please, for the love of God, like, don't screw up the tour. Like, we're just assuming at this point you're going to do a really
Yes.
great
Uh-huh.
tour and that you actually know how to sell your venue
Mhm.
and ask leading questions that lead to a sale and all these wonderful things. But just please, like, if you feel like you're not good at that, please reach out to me or get my tour course. I don't care how you get the
Mhm.
information, but just don't drop the ball when you've spent so much money getting that lead on your property, right? Um, do a good job. I mean, that should be the part that you're able to like knock out of the park, right? Like, it should be easy for you. So that's just a little soapbox there. But talk to us about how people could work with you, because I do know that you guys are providing something that's so incredibly important. I know for a fact there are people listening to this episode now, and half of what you guys said overwhelmed them. And they're like,
Mhm.
what are you talking about? What even is a landing page? What's a thank you page? Like, we're so accustomed to this stuff. So I know there's a lot of people that need you, and they don't. I also believe that, um, hello, venue owners, you can't do everything. And you just can't. And especially for people that are not tech savvy, I'm just going to encourage you to pay someone to do this and not try to muscle through a DIY version of this because your time is well spent other places. I say this with love. So tell us what it looks like to work with wedding industry ads and how people could get in touch with you. And of
Yes.
course, the show notes will have all of this, but
Okay.
yes, tell us.
Great. Yes. No, I agree wholeheartedly. Like, if you want to get things done right and if you want to get things done fast, that's when, you really need to invest the money versus the time in getting yourself set up for success the right way. So with our full service venue clients, we do, handle everything for them as far as launching their Google ads, launching their Meta ads, and not just launching the ads, I should say, like actually writing the ad copy, creating the creatives. If you share your photos and videos with us, we can turn it into really fabulous, high converting ads. And then, of course, on the back end, everything that I was talking about with the landing pages, the email automations, the text automations, getting your calendar put on a landing page, and then those appointment follow-ups. We really take care of all of that as well. And so the best place to start is to just head on over to weddingindustryads.com. You'll be able to opt in for our ads investment guide, which will give you some more details, but really immediately from there, it'll open up a link to book a time on my calendar, and we can have a conversation about it and go from there.
I love it. I love it so much. It's always so exciting to me to see the American dream, honestly, entrepreneurship, being able to like see a need and fill a need and be able to help so many hardworking venue owners and wedding professionals. You guys have been serving our community well, and I'm so grateful for you guys just being on today and letting people hear and see your beautiful faces. And I do encourage people to go check them out, and we'll definitely put your contact information in our show notes. And yeah, today was so incredibly helpful. So thank you for your generosity and sharing some of your wisdom with us. But for my viewers and listeners, thank you so much for tuning in again. And I will see you next time on the Venue Success Podcast.